continue to get richer. So how and why is the gap between rich and poor getting bigger? Our data journalist, Brian Osweta, has been taking a close look at the stats and joins us now from Nairobi. Good morning to you. Give us a sense then of the wealth of Africa's richest people and how much it's growing.
Good morning to you. Actually, it's the Forbes list was released recently in 2022, and now the $18 billionaires in Africa are worth $84.9 billion. And so among them, the top three is Aliko Dangote, who is a Nigerian, and this is the 11th time in a year in a row. He's actually the richest man in Africa, and he's actually focusing on manufacturing industry, and he's worth 13.9 billion. So how did he grow his wealth? Well, during the pandemic, there was a 30% increase in stock price of Dangote cement. And since cement is his most valuable asset, you find that according to analysts, a surge in housing development and growth in government infrastructure spending actually drove a higher demand in the first 9 months of 2021. And that's why he made so much money during the pandemic. And the second person on the list is Johan Rupat, who's from South Africa. And he's up from number 4 from last year, and he's worth 11 billion. With him, he focuses in fashion and retail. And how he made his money was that there was a 60% surge in share price of one of his companies that makes Cartier watches and Montblanc pens. And so this pushed his fortune high. And the third one, who's in the top 3, is Nikki Oppenheimer, who's also South African, interesting. And he's worth $8.7 billion. And his family ventures into metal and mining. And so the interesting bit is that during the pandemic, when you expect people should be spending less on luxury goods and all that, but in South Africa, some of the people who focus in doing cutting and polishing of diamonds say there was actually an increase of sales by 60%.
Even during the pandemic? Wow, yeah, that is...
during the pandemic.
That's startling, isn't it? On the other end of the wealth scale, though, the pandemic has made people poorer.
Yeah, it's actually interesting in the sense that, as you mentioned earlier, that 9 million people are pushed into extreme poverty. So somebody might ask himself, how did they get to that 9 million people? If you can remember during the pandemic, when there was a lockdown period, most people lost their jobs. And I'll give you an instance here in Kenya. Most of the people who do these jobs are informal jobs. So for instance, when the schools were closed, there are women who actually go to these schools and sell food to the children, but the children are no longer in school. So where do they sell their food? Look at the eateries also are closed. And so a majority of people do the informal jobs, and most of them were the most affected. And that's why you find that so many people lost their jobs, and this actually pushed them more into poverty. And the interesting bit also from the Oxford report is that the 6 richest billionaires in Africa actually own more wealth than the bottom 678 million Africans. If you're trying to put figures in, this is actually half of Africa, the 678 million. So you can imagine that difference.
Yeah, 6 men only more than half of the continent's population. It is startling, and I guess that those sort of figures perhaps replicated elsewhere in the world too. Does Oxfam or others have practical solutions for ending this widening gap?
Yeah, thank you for that. They actually gave one major solution. Is this? Everybody has been talking about this, and that is taxing the wealth. So one of the research they did, they showed that actually, for example, in East Africa, the 10% riches, the richest who are the 10% earn an average of 47% pre-tax national income across, while the poorest, which are actually half of the citizens, only earn 13.3%. So what will happen if you tax these people? So according to Oxfam, it says that the annual wealth tax applied to wealth of multimillionaires and billionaires in Africa, it will raise a 19.87 billion. What will this do? It looks like a big figure, but what will this do? So this will actually reduce out-of-pocket health spending in Africa by half if this is invested in the health sector. And so if they do this, and another issue that is cropping up, you find that during the pandemic, there was increased spending in health and social protection. But right now, organizations like IMF are pushing countries like in East Africa to slash funding into these programs. And what will this do? These cuts will worsen the East Africa economy, and it will deepen poverty among the residents. So the best thing that Oxfam actually advises is that they need to tax the wealth instead of slashing this funding.
Brian Osweta joining us live there from Nairobi. Thank you.
And James